it's time to talk about the least sexy form of piracy, book stealing. This issue costs the US publishing industry an estimated $315 million a year, and disproportionately affects indie authors. How do I know? My series has been stolen 3 times, that I know of. Let's take a look at where this is happening, what can be done, and how to protect yourself from thieves. Some context about book piracy might help reveal the scope of the problem. That stat of it costing the US publishing market $315 million per year comes from this report. In 2017, Nielsen and Digimarc analyzed the market and came up with that figure. We'll dive deeper into that report later, but let's assume that figure is somewhat accurate. Total US book sales in 2025 came in around $14.6 billion. But out of that total revenue, how much came from ebooks? This unsourced site claims $1 billion, and if we extrapolate this monthly data on a much more reliable site to an annual figure, that's actually pretty close. $1 billion annually sounds pretty reasonable. And when we compare those two figures, $315 million to $1 billion, that's a sizable chunk, nearly a third. Personally, I'm a bit shocked that ebook sales are so weak when compared to hardcover and paperbacks. Even audiobooks are bringing in more revenue per year. That's something to think about. The Journal of Publishing Culture report lays out the problem. Ebooks are especially vulnerable because it's pretty easy to copy them. And once you strip the digital security, you can make money hosting them on sites through advertising, by selling the files, or by offering a subscription fee for access. And since these copies tend to be exact, there's no loss in quality, unlike someone filming a bootleg of a movie from the back row. Indie authors experience this last part a bit differently. I'll get into that later. That said, this report does acknowledge that there's not enough data or research on this topic. And I think that's going to be especially true for how it affects indie authors. Here are some key findings from that 2017 Nielsen report. Most illegal downloaders of ebooks were between 18 and 34, are highly educated, and average over $60K in yearly income. This one's a bit counterintuitive. Most illegal downloaders also buy physical and digital books through legal channels. It's the convenience that drives them to pirate books, not the cost. And of the pirates polled, 33% would buy an ebook if a free copy wasn't available. It's really not cost that's motivating this piracy. Fear of malware, of facing legal consequences, and harming authors are the top 3 reasons people are less likely to pirate a book. That's encouraging. Don't harm authors. Again, it's important to recognize that the findings of this report are not conclusive. The data they were using had limitations. The sample size was only 595 people. The self-reported nature of how it was conducted might skew the results. And given that it's from 2017, it may no longer reflect today's market. But that's the best information we have, so we're going to roll with it. As far as convenience being a primary motivator for book piracy, a study from The Guardian corroborates that. That same study found that some readers justify pirating books from very successful authors who would be less affected by the revenue lost. I understand that sentiment, but with very few exceptions, I think authors earn a lot less than you'd think. Here's where having more data would be useful. What books are being pirated, and how much did those authors earn per year? Another justification is that reading an author's work is more complimentary than ignoring it, even if you're not paying for it. I find that a bit flimsy. You can borrow ebooks from the library for free, and with Libby, you don't even have to leave your house to do it. So like the report is suggesting, I think this comes down to convenience and a sense of entitlement. One major difference with the Guardian report is that they found price was a major factor. On the topic of pricing, since Amazon essentially has a monopoly on ebook distribution, maybe their pricing does affect piracy. A few other studies have found a correlation between perceived price fairness and ebook piracy, but did not identify a cause. There's also the element of people wanting to actually own the things that they purchase. I know, crazy, right? So there are legitimate reasons to want to strip ebooks of digital right management. Beyond profits, there are other ways that piracy can hurt authors. Mainly, it could harm their long-term career prospects by giving a false impression of the desirability of their work. Your publisher may not commission your next book if the last one didn't sell. And here's where independent authors are much more vulnerable. You may have poured all of your life savings into drafting that first book, so failure to launch may have a ripple effect. It's also very hard to compete with free, especially free and convenient. It's kind of like all of the pirated music that was available on Napster in the early 2000s. It ended up totally upending the music industry. While it's hard to quantify how much each illegal download affects an author, it's undeniable that someone else is profiting from their work. And given figures like the median full-time author only making $25,000 a year, I think authors need whatever income they can get. So what does this report suggest that we do about book piracy? For starters, search engines could do a lot more to hide pirated content, especially Google, which is why I picked this topic in the first place. Recently, myself and nearly every other Royal Road author found their series stolen and posted on Google Books. Here's what my page looks like. You'll notice that the author name has been changed and misrepresented. My cover art has been stolen with my name still on it. The title's mangled because they just scraped my entire Royal Road page. This bracketed portion was not meant to be included. And they also copy-pasted my entire blurb. With one exception, a very sneaky exception. Despite leaving in my weekly chapter release schedule, which doesn't make sense for a published ebook, the thief altered this statement: "If you are reading this on another site, it is a pirated copy. Please let me know if you see it elsewhere or in an audiobook format." Whereas if you look at my Royal Road page, I specifically say it's only available on Royal Road. Sneaky, sneaky thieves. I'm almost impressed with that level of diligence. I've already filed a copyright complaint. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So my book is no longer for sale, but they kept all this metadata up. It's really frustrating seeing the wrong author attributed, as well as these random genre tags. I don't think family and relationships, love and romance, or crime apply for my book. Here's the preview portion of another author's stolen book. Like my book used to have, there's a link to buy it for $1. And if you scroll down the preview a bit, you can see that it was directly lifted from Royal Road. The ebook, which you can purchase through Google, has author notes and shoutouts interspersed. How a company with vast resources isn't screening for things like that blows me away. If you've ever serialized your fiction, you should really check if Google Books has it right now. This is a very widespread issue. The easiest way to report a page is to click this link, choose this option, identify that it's a legal reason, someone stole your intellectual property. If you have a copyright, you should click that. Even if you don't, you can register later. They make you jump through a few more hoops, and then you can finally submit it. 2 days after I submitted that request, I got this response. They took down the preview pages and the ability to buy the ebook, but they're going to keep that metadata up. Why? I don't know. They claim there's some value to this information, but as I pointed out with the title, the author name, the description, and the genres, it's completely incorrect. Google claims this is some kind of policy they have. Like myself, many authors are furious about this. Not only could a listing like this confuse potential readers, it could conflict with an exclusive contract like Kindle Unlimited. I'm really grateful that the Royal Road community was on top of this whole issue. There are countless posts explaining exactly how to tackle it. I should have been more diligent with this first and second step. Now I don't have a full record of what was pirated. For those of you who use a pen name and are having trouble proving that you're the author of the book, here are some steps you can take. You could add some kind of verification note to your Royal Road page itself. Royal Road has also provided a handy resource, including adding a feature that allows for publication verification, where they'll certify that you're the author of the work. And in case you want to email their team directly, here's the template I used. Like the Reddit post pointed out, this is an issue affecting thousands of authors. It's absurd how big this problem has become. How can a handful of users upload hundreds of books in a day and not trigger some kind of early warning from the Google Book team? Are there really no guide rails in place? This post by Dose sums up my frustration. The issue with piracy of books from novel sites isn't just the pirates themselves and the ease with which AI is able to facilitate the mass theft. It's the fact that the platforms run by billion-dollar companies are effectively taking the sides of the pirates by making the DMCA process as complicated as possible. Whether this negligence opens them up to a class action lawsuit remains to be determined. But this kind of blatant theft needs to be stopped immediately. Google has more than enough resources that this shouldn't be happening in the first place. Part of the problem is that you can just go to Royal Road and manually copy whatever you want, which makes scraping the site far too easy. As I mentioned in the intro, my series has been stolen 2 other times that I know of. The first was by an AI audiobook site, which thankfully is down now. And once again, I didn't document the evidence, but trust me, it happened. And I really hated the idea of an audiobook that I had no creative control over that was using an AI voice to narrate. That could lead to a very poor impression of my story. The third example of piracy that I came across after this Google debacle was Novel 2. This site seems to port over my entire story from Royal Road, which is weird because Royal Road is free. I'm not going to spend too much time on that site. It's probably full of malware, but at least they kept my author name and didn't alter my description. Using some of the tools we learned from the scam video, I looked up Novel 2's domain registration. Some of this information's redacted, but I can see that they have Cloudflare accounts, and they registered with Namecheap, who I can petition with a DMCA complaint. But wait, why contact Namecheap if there's an address I can contact? Once again, the scam video had me well prepared. Any address in Iceland is very suspect. And in this case, the address pops up as the Icelandic Penis Museum. I'm not joking, what a dickhead. But wait, there's more. People will steal your book and put it on Amazon. Dose is again doing some great work for the community. Here's the original story, Paragon of Mana by K. Ashoke. And here's the pirated version, More Mana Than Man, KJ Ashward. In this case, they turned it into a graphic novel. The covers are nearly identical, but subtly changed, as is the author name. This is a trickier example, since the thieves changed just enough to avoid detection. I hope the author's able to get this down soon. Amazon seems to be a bit more on the ball than Google when it comes to taking down infringed work. I don't think anyone's given my series this treatment on Amazon, but I need to be diligent and make sure that's not the case, which is exhausting. It's hard enough as an author to keep up the motivation to continue writing, editing, and marketing your book. Now I have to worry about piracy? Ugh. I really hope to see major platforms like Google take this more seriously. I'm in full agreement with those Reddit posts. They're being willfully negligent. But there is a silver lining. This is yet another example demonstrating that the community comes together in times of need. That's by far my favorite aspect of Royal Road as a platform. Speaking of which, it's time to pay that forward and shout out some authors. I encourage you to check out Star Wizards, Return of the Space Dragons by BT Skull, Goebel by one of my top commentators, Powerful Patzer, The Adopted Noble Is Not Human by Man with Two Moles, and The Wix Chronicles by Riley C. Lyle. I hope this video illuminated some of the consequences of piracy for authors. As a reader, if you see an author's work somewhere it shouldn't be, let them know. They'll appreciate it. And most of all, I hope I showcase that authors are vulnerable and worth protecting. Right, TMB? Yeah. TMB supports authors.